Dan Hurley's contract details are out. Plus, is Meleek Thomas a UConn lock? You're Locked On UConn.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My YouTube support on here has been absolutely amazing. I'd love to have all of my subscribers that are growing, and it's been a phenomenal run. Download the audio version as well wherever you get your podcasts. It's equally as important for helping the channel and Locked On UConn audience grow. So if you can do me two quick favors. First, click that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen. Make sure you get those notifications. Then head over to Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Hit that follow button. This way you'll never miss a moment of Locked On UConn. Can't tell you how much your support means to me. It's everything. If you're tuning in from your car, once you finish the show, please drop us a 5-star review. Good reviews trigger referrals for similar shows where people will find us, grab us some new audience members who are interested in more UConn content. Today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Well, it is a foregone conclusion that Dan Hurley was getting ready to sign his contract extension with the UConn Huskies, and the details are out today. And I can't help but be a little, not concerned, but the word is underwhelmed. Like, I think UConn did a great job of keeping him. I think he's happy. I think what it really proves is Dan Hurley was never about the money. He's not the type that's jumping from job to further his bank account. Because when we go over these salaries and the details in each one of these, there's my first yawn of the day. You'll see that obviously it's an incredible amount of money, but it's also, when you look at the list of coaches who make more, which right now I think it's just Bill Self. I think Calipari is on par with this. It just really just shows you that Dan Hurley didn't say, pay me X or I'm out. You know, he is a true loyalist in every sense of the word. And I know there's going to be skeptics that hear that and go, well, he's making, $6, $7, $8 million. How much money is too much money? There's always going to be those people. You can stay in that lane if you want. I don't respect that, but I understand it. And there's a difference there, because until further notice, we live in a free market capitalistic society. And if you're upset that someone makes a large amount of money, there's opportunity for you to go out and make your own. So think about his, what this is. So it's a $400K base salary. That's his supplement. Then you go into his supplemental salary, which is where the meat of the money is. So this year's supplemental salary, let me get my trusty calculator out, and we'll add this up together as a fan base. I know some of us are really interested in this. If this is not your cup of tea, maybe this episode isn't for you. Oh, well. So $400K, we'll put that up here in my trusty board here. Then you add the $6.375 million. So that's $6,375,000, and that comes out to just under 6.9 million. So 6.875 with his supplemental salary. Then every year, this isn't added up, but this year, at November 15th, you add $1 million to that. So we're at 6.6, let's just say 675 plus 1 million on November 15th. That'll be Dan Hurley Day. That's the account handle on X is Stores South. So I appreciate that, my friend. He also gave me a crash course in this, so I appreciate the help with adding some content to this. So next year, the minimum amount that he would make is $7,875,000. That's the minimum amount. Plus his country club membership, 20 game tickets, plus a free chartered flight tickets. I think it's a couple of those, two or three different ones, to away games, and 5 free parking tickets. I don't know if you want to add that up. Plus the performance bonus. So let's say he gets all of these and they go back and they hit their three-peat numbers. So it's $50K for Big East regular season championships, solo or shared. So add $50K to that. That makes it, that's times, let's see, 7.875 million plus $50K. That's just under 8 million, $7,925,000. If they win the Big East tournament championship, that gets him to just under 8 million. If they get to the NCAA Sweet 16 appearance, another $50,000. So that's at 8 million. So let's add $100,000 there. That's where we would be at. So let's say we're in the Sweet 16 now. His base salary is $8,225,000. Then if he makes the Elite Eight, $125,000 added onto that. So we're talking 8.275 million there. And then if he makes the Final Four again, another $250,000. So that's 8.5. And then if he wins the national championship, now we're at $9 million. So opportunity is there to be at about 9 million or so a year, maybe give or take a few bucks. There isn't a ton I can really kind of get upset about. Like I said, I'd love for them ceremonially. I'd love for the, if we look up what Bill Self, because if you look at Bill Self, I think his base is, probably supplemental is the same thing. Bill Self salary, I think it's 9.3 or 4 million. Self will be paid more than $13 million in the contract's first year. So that was his first year paid, but he's at 9.7 is what they have here. So, he's in the stratosphere. I just dislike the fact that we have a 2-time defending national champion that can't say he's the highest paid coach in basketball. Now, maybe that's not what Dan Hurley wants. I think it probably is right. I think that's just more fan ego and hubris to kind of say that not only do we have the best coach in basketball, but he's the highest paid. So, but that's the contract extension. We're going to dive into the recruiting latest with Meleek Thomas, Darius Acuff, Eric Ryby, where they're going. What are the predictions on that? What are some folks that I've talked to said coming up after this? There's nothing like catching a Major League Baseball game in the summer. I remember one game last year the atmosphere was electric. It's memories like this that keep me coming back. Now, getting tickets is a breeze with GameTime, an authorized Major League Baseball ticket marketplace. The closer to game time, the better the deals. It's like being rewarded for procrastination. I've found some amazing last-minute tickets on this app. I love that you can see the view from my seat before buying. GameTime makes it super easy with an all-in pricing and their lowest price guarantee. Just download the GameTime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Don't miss out. Make every moment count with GameTime. Download it today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. And we're back with Locked On UConn. Thank you for tuning in. Meleek Thomas is an absolute lock for UConn. Not only from internal folks that I've been talking to who have heard nothing but good things, but also from some of the things that these are the same people that tipped me off that Liam McNeely was a done deal. Also getting confirmation from Rob Cassidy, Rivals national recruiting analyst, had this quote: It's becoming increasingly difficult for me to imagine 5-star guard Meleek Thomas landing anywhere but UConn, Cassidy wrote. So UConn fans, get used to 5 stars being coveted and wanting to also come and don the UConn jersey. That's absolutely a fact, ladies and gentlemen. Meleek Thomas, I don't know what number he'll wear. We'll see who transfers out. We'll see who comes in next year, but I think he'll be the first domino to drop. You heard that here first. He is an absolute lock for you. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today. a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So, with Meleek Thomas all but a lock for UConn, what about Darius Acuff Jr.? He's been linked to UConn in his top 4 along with Kansas, Arkansas, and Michigan. The same people who are saying this is likely going to be a Coach Cal signing of Acuff in Arkansas. I can see it. I think he's the type of player that Cal has really gravitated towards in his past at Kentucky, and I'm sure that he is looking to add big splashes to his Razorbacks. Although the reasoning seems a bit more to be about roster spots and not about playing styles, because Meleek being off the ball, being an elite scorer, and Darius being more of a point guard who gets points off the bounce in terms of like getting to the basket, getting downhill. So it's conceivable that they could play together. However, not sure how great that would work in terms of NIL, how much money each player is going to accumulate in that NIL collective, either from Arkansas or UConn or other programs. So the likelihood of snagging both for either team is not high. So it's likely one or the other, with both Meleek being the absolute leader in the clubhouse when it comes to UConn, and it looks like Darius Acuff Jr. being the leader in the clubhouse with Arkansas, and Coach Cal looking to cement that. But the nail in the coffin, according to ESPN, in terms of Meleek Thomas, is according to ESPN's Fran Fraschilla, is that Meleek Thomas has really acquitted himself as a winner. So he's prioritized that over development, over NIL money, and that's something that has Dan Hurley, mindset all over it. And the fact that he can use the past 2 national championships all in this NIL era, all in this transfer portal era, something other coaches can't come close to. So when it comes to this type of game plan for Dan Hurley and these 5-star and 4-stars, we've probably said this over and over again, so I apologize if I'm being a broken record. For all of the people who get nervous about 5-star, 4-star guys who are saying, "Hey, UConn's in my top 5," or I got an offer from UConn. We're going to dispel a lot of what happens in this, recruiting and coaching world coming up in the next segment. But you have to realize that these coaches are casting a really wide net in the high school recruiting, and it's a little bit kind of giving away the third segment. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about how coaches set up their scheduling and how it all breaks down for high school recruiting in the transfer portal coming up after this. Okay, we're back. So I did a little research. I hope everyone had a really great 4th of July weekend, and spent it with family and friends. We did our Kemba Walker tribute. We talked about recruiting. We talked about, I think, 6 players that UConn is going after in the recruiting. And I wanted to get a better perspective from coaches who have been in the fight at the high major level. So I did a little digging and pulled some of my friends across the country who are in the coaching world. So this is some of the quotes and some of the thought process around it. With high school recruiting, you cast an absolute wide a net as humanly possible, because everyone is going to transfer. At least the prevailing theme is that everyone will transfer at least once in college. Sad, but true. So you target the above your level kids. And for UConn, that means 4 and 5 stars. It doesn't mean we're going 3 stars unless it's a developmental project. So maybe you get one, more likely to get them on a first transfer when they don't play enough as a freshman. This is also unique to UConn because UConn was able to retain the 4 freshmen outside of Stephon Castle, who went pro, who stuck around for this year, hoping to get that next level. Likely, or I would, just to caution you guys, we'll likely lose one of those players if one of the players falls enough behind where they're not getting the run that they feel like they deserve. That's just the reality of it. So in this case, if you miss on some of those players that don't come, and they go to a mid-major or another college like Cam, like an Aiden Mahaney, and they go average 20 points a game, then you've recruited them. You've already kind of, established a relationship there. So right now, everyone gets unlimited visits. So you have everyone visits as a junior, only the serious targets as a senior. So let's take a look at some of these players. I mean, there is a myriad of players that I'm sure UConn is monitoring. All in the top 50, top 100. Like some folks that I feel like are getting some love. We talked about Chris Enoch Jr. We talked about Darius Adams, who they're very high on. We've talked about even Caden Boozer, who is likely going to be more of a Miami or Duke kid. But these are all guys who they're probably going to they have offered and they're monitoring. We talked about Braylon Mullins. Nico Bandalo is probably the most, I wouldn't say exciting, but interesting prospect that's 6'11", 7-footer. And then also someone that you guys told me to look into, which is Eric Ryby. I like that kid. 7-footer. He's a lefty. He can shoot the three of it. And really kind of, I feel like, is the type of player that Dan Hurley wants that can spread the floor. Positionless basketball. Other names linked to UConn in this recruiting mix, Caden Lewis. Kieran Anthony, Carmelo's son. Not necessarily linked to UConn, but I would be shocked if he wasn't offered. Just going down the list, so we talked about Eric Ryby. I, again, like him because while I don't know if he's the physical presence that they want, Creighton is in the mix for them, so we may be having to deal with him. So get used to that name if he does go to Creighton, because that's a perfect Creighton kid, can shoot the three, can work within the frame of their offense. Some other interesting, like John Clark is a 6'9" center from Link Academy. They churn out Division I players all the time. But when you flip side to that, to the transfer portal, what they're looking for is these three questions. Who can we get involved with, right? Who did we previously recruit? So all of the names I just mentioned, if they go other places, it doesn't mean that they can't eventually come to UConn, which I think is kind of an interesting, kind of cool aspect of college basketball. Some find it sad, some don't like it, but it makes it a more interesting time in the offseason. What are our roster needs? So depending on what happens coming up this season in the quest for a three-peat, who stays, who goes, the impending, if Dan Hurley sticks around, because the biggest elephant in the room is what if an East Coast team like New York or Philly, who has playoff aspirations, falls short again against the defending champions Boston Celtics, and he gets in the mix with the Knicks, or like we talked about Philly. I don't think Brooklyn's really in the mix, but that would be an interesting question to answer, for next season. After those three questions are answered, or four, if you add Dan Hurley into the mix, then it's about NIL and the money negotiation, which is really the Dan Hurley way to talk about the fit and everything that goes into it, and then talk about if it's a fit from a money perspective. So it's more speed dating, so to speak, than it is about recruiting and creating those relationships. More of an unlimited visits. Unlimited visits. So you just kind of, one coach's quote was, just make it rain as many guys to visit as possible and try to squeeze them in and get them on campus so they can kind of get a feel for you, feel for your program, what you're up to, and then you drill down from there. So this is one of those things, guys, where the possibilities are endless in college basketball now. Like I mentioned, I'm going to hammer this point home many, many times from now until the start of the season. Just because we miss on a player outside of the AJ DeBonsas, about like the Cooper Flags, if they go to another program, the fact that they could come to UConn in the future in the transfer portal is definitely in the mix. Well, an abbreviated Locked On UConn today. This is Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available in the free Fire TV channels app. This has been another episode of Locked On UConn. I'm your host, Mark Zanetto, asking you to stay locked in, stay connected. Make sure you celebrate Dan Hurley Day on November 15th. Every year retention bonus for him to stick around at UConn. Hopefully it's for a full 5 years. And make sure that toughness meter is always rising. And as always, go Huskies.